Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to MissionDawah.com's online Dawah training course with myself, Harun Qureshi, and Abdurraheem Green, who mashallah converted to Islam in 1989, which is when I was born, and mashallah has over 20 years of Dawah experience. So Abdurraheem, the first question I have for you today is, in your experience, what do you feel, or what is the best Dawah structure or methodology that you feel is the most effective?
Well, as you know, we've developed a system which we call GORAP, which is basically taking a non-Muslim through a conversation about the existence of God, of Allah, the oneness of Allah, the need for revelation and prophethood, which all leads to a evidence-based conclusion that the Quran is from God, that Muhammad is the Prophet, that there is only one God, which is of course the essential components of Islam. So this is a it's not the only way of giving dawah, but it's a very highly effective methodology, mashallah.
Okay, mashallah. So you're saying GORAP stands for God's existence, oneness,
God's oneness,
revelation,
revelation,
and prophethood.
And prophethood.
Okay, excellent. And how is this kind of format, how is this kind of created? How was the GORAP created?
For many years I went down to Speaker's Corner, and there's still some of my videos available on YouTube of the talks I gave down there. And I tried many different ways of giving dawah to people. And alhamdulillah, they had various degrees of success. The least successful method of dawah in terms of actually inviting non-Muslims to Islam was the approach of using the Bible and using their scriptures and trying to argue with them from that point of view.
Right.
But the most successful method was actually a method that was taught to me, at least in the basic details of it, by a sheikh from Egypt, Muhammad ibn Ismail, who came to visit us here in the UK, and he came to see me and spent an afternoon down in Speaker's Corner. And mashallah, he was one of the few sheikhs who, most sheikhs obviously could talk about the fiqh of dawah and tell you how important dawah is, but he was really involved in dawah to non-Muslims himself on a personal level. So it's actually something he did, and generally I respect a person who is not just someone who has the information, but actually is involved in the activity.
Right.
And I'm going to much more be inclined to listen to a person who, walks the walk and doesn't just talk the talk.
Sure.
So I took what he said very seriously, and he observed me. And basically what he found is that a lot of what I was doing is people were coming and challenging me with various questions.
Right.
And I would try and respond to their questions and use type of logical, rational approach.
Right.
To answer their questions and give them reasons why Muslims do this and why we don't do that. And he really questioned this methodology, and he said that it was a flawed method.
Right.
And the reason he said was because with many people, first of all, they're not always sincere about the reasons they're asking the question. Sometimes they're just asking you because it's just their way of showing what I've got is better than what you've got. Look at all the problems you've got with your religion. But I think the other point that he was making is that, and those people obviously, even when you answer one question, they'll just come up with another one and another one and another one. And even if they're sincere, it's the same problem. There's so many questions surrounding Islam. And it's not only the many questions surrounding Islam. Being a Muslim involves looking at the world in a very different way. And so the one who looks at the world through the eyes of a believer in Allah, in the last day, that this universe is a creation of Allah, that life is a test, is going to be very different from a person who has a materialistic, secular approach, who thinks that life is just about happiness and enjoyment, for example, whatever other things people may think, but they're different worldviews. So there is a real problem in trying to explain to a person with a different worldview the logic of why you do something, because actually your logic is very different. Your premise, the basis upon which you do things and don't do things, is very different. So the sheikh was making the point Why don't you first explain the premise? Why don't you show that, look, there is a God? And why don't you show that God is one? And why don't you explain to them that the Quran is from God and that Muhammad is the Prophet? Because if they accept those foundations, then they'll accept everything that comes with it.
Sure, sure.
If they don't accept those foundations, what's the benefit of persuading them that pig is bad for you and alcohol is damaging and that interest-based economy is not the best way to go?
Sure, sure.
Because even if they accept not to eat pig and they accept not to drink alcohol and they accept not to have an interest-based economy or whatever it may be, and they don't accept the oneness of Allah, the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at the end of the day, when they meet Allah, all of that stuff is not going to benefit them. The only thing that is going to benefit them is their believing and accepting and declaring that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger. So that's what led me to develop what is called a version of the GORAP approach.
Right.
I basically realized through my years and years of Dawah experiences that there is a finite number of questions and a finite number of issues that people had with Islam. And so I began to realize that if you could have a conversation with most people that dealt with those issues and those problems, and some of them, the person themselves may not have it, but you'd be surprised how many people are familiar with it, right? So for example, not everybody may have a problem with the idea of the existence of God, but they may be very familiar with some of the arguments against the existence of God. So if in your conversation you can dispel or contradict some of those counter-arguments, then it's psychologically very powerful to the person you're having that conversation with. And that's why we've tried to build into the GORAP, which may seem to some people a little bit complicated, but it's based upon years of experience and the understanding that there is a narrative out there amongst the public, an atheist narrative, that has to be countered.
Yeah.
And the GORAP makes an attempt to counter some of that narrative as well. So these are part of the reasons why, mashallah, the GORAP method is an effective way of giving dawah.
Right.
Alhamdulillah.
So basically you're saying that, because I've seen it myself, that a lot of dua, they sit down and for hours they start getting into discussions trying to answer these uncomfortable questions. And you're basically saying because of the kind of non-Muslims' way of thinking or the way they see Islam is very different to the way a Muslim would see it. So they won't be able to kind of meet in the middle. So for example, you could kind of say it's like the non-Muslim has glasses on which are just black and white, where the Muslim has coloured glasses on, so they see blue, green, yellow. So you're arguing with somebody saying that this is green, this is blue. So the GORAP method is kind of like taking their glasses off and putting yours on them.
Absolutely.
Is that how it is? Yeah.
That's a very good way of describing it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in regards to this aspect of, if somebody does come to you, Abdurraheem, and says, I ask an uncomfortable question, like for example, well, why do women, cover up? Why do they need to wear niqab? Isn't that oppressive? How would you link that kind of question to the GORAP?
There's two ways of doing it. One way is to give them a brief answer, to give them some sort of rationalization, and then to say to them, but that's not what's the really important issue. The really important issue is there a God? Is God one? And go through the essential components of GORAP. Another way to deal with it is by totally avoiding. It's not avoiding the question. It's just by dealing with it directly in a more profound way.
Sure.
And it's by saying, look, that's a really good question. And, I'm glad you asked me the question. And it's great we're having a conversation. And what's your name, by the way? Yeah, exactly. So the point is that, you make that, connection with people, you smile. Almost automatically the person will smile back. They'll feel, this is about state change. It's about putting the person in a more comfortable zone, so they're going to be. These are basic skills that anyone who's worked in a shop should have, right? For example, when you're talking to a person about Islam, Islam has more rights that you should make a person feel as comfortable as possible. That's within what is halal for us to do. And so relax the person, because you want them to be able to accept what you're saying. Yeah, and you can say to them, well, that's a really good question. But in order to answer that question, we need to understand the fundamentals, the basics of Islam.
Sure.
And then you could say, for example, to them, do you have a few minutes?
Sure.
Now, the reason why you say, do you have a few minutes, is, well, first of all, they might genuinely be busy. It's just polite to say that. The second thing is that if they say yes, first of all, that you've got a confirmation they're going to spend a bit of time with you. That's nice. And the second thing is, it's good to get affirmation. You want to hear them say yes a lot. You want them to be agreeing with you. So just getting that yes from them is a good way, to build up that relationship, that positive dynamic between you and the person you're talking to. A lot of dawah is just about good people skills.
Sure.
I mean, we can talk about GORAP, we can say, you should say this, you should say that. But, a person who smiles and is loving and is talking about the moon is made of cheese might actually probably more likely to persuade a person than someone who gives a sort of cold, logical sort of, talking like this and that. So, no one should make GORAP a sort of monologue, right, that sounds like some out of a philosophy book, because a lot of it is about people skills. I think up to 70% of communication is non-verbal, right? How your face looks, how you express yourself, how you move, the tone of your voice. They're not actually the actual words that you're saying is a small percentage. So smiling, being friendly, being nice, being empathetic, listening to the person, giving the person the time to express themselves is very important. But the nice thing about GORAP is that you have a plan for your conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
You have a plan. You say, I know I want to go here, and then I want to go there. Okay, it may take me an hour. It may take me a week. It may take me 20 years to go through this conversation with a person. But I know I need to take them step by step through this. But it doesn't mean you don't give them the time to express themselves.
Sure.
And even better, sometimes you can actually get them to articulate the GORAP.
Right.
Because maybe they believe this stuff themselves. You just need to give them the opportunity to express it. So what I'm trying to say is that GORAP is a great sort of structure, right? But the people skills are very important. They should be genuine, and it comes from a genuine empathy and a genuine caring for that person. So that handshake, that smile, that right body language is very, very important. And so the point is that you acknowledge that's a good question. I do want to deal with your question, but what you're really saying to them is, I want to deal with your question, but in order to deal with this question, you need to understand something about the way I look at the world. Yeah. The way Islam tells us to look at the world. Because if you don't understand that, everything's irrelevant. Sometimes I say to people, look, I say, what do I care what some guy in the desert 1,400 years ago, he said, I don't care. Some guy in the desert, who cares? Right? Who cares? I care because I believe this man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad, was a prophet of God. He was receiving revelation from the creator of the heavens and the earth. That's the only reason I care. Yeah. Otherwise, why would I pray? Why would I fast? Why would I give up all the things not all the things, but I mean, give up the things I used to think I used to enjoy in my life. Sure. The point being is that why do all of this stuff? I do it because I believe something, right? Very profound and very, very important. So if you don't understand why I believe that, what's the point in us having? It's not really worthwhile us having the conversation. Yeah. That's what's behind this GORAP approach.
Right, I see.
And you need to lead the person. You need to lead the person or the people you're giving dawah to in that direction.
Right, okay. So for example, if somebody doesn't come to you with an uncomfortable question, what are some of the ways that you can actually start a conversation from nothing? Even just say you just met somebody you didn't know. How can you actually lead a conversation into a dawah conversation?
If I was going to break this down into stages, I'd say number one, you have to have the desire. You need to constantly remind yourself of the importance of dawah. So creating that desire, that passion, and that enthusiasm within yourself and maintaining it is very important. Like anything else, if you want to be a good football player, hang around with good football players. If you want to be a good da'i, hang around with people who give dawah. If you want to make dawah a part of your life, be with the people who make it a part of their life. And everyone, every Muslim needs to be a da'i on some level. It's part of our deen. It's part of our means of salvation. So number one, you need to have that enthusiasm. You need to have that mentality. I want to give dawah. To give you an example, I mean, I still feel bad if I sit next to someone for 10 minutes and I didn't find a way to give them some dawah. I make istighfar. I say, Allah, please, forgive me. I feel really bad. And I think that shouldn't be unique to me. I think every Muslim should feel bad that they've been with someone, they could have conveyed to them the message of Islam and they didn't. We let ourselves down, we let Allah's deen down. We, in a sense, betrayed the mission of the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet was ready to be stoned and beaten and killed and all those things for the sake of passing the message on, and yet we live in a safe environment. And what is it? We just don't have the guts to just start up a conversation. So I think we have to have that feeling, right? That's the first thing, The second thing, right, is make dua. If you have that feeling, ask Allah, Allah, please find a way for me. Ya Rabbi, you don't need me to invite people to Islam. You can guide this person to Islam like that, in an instant. There are people who became Muslim and no Muslim ever talked to them. They read a book, they did this, they became Muslim. Allah, you need to make dua. Allah, please help me to give dawah to this person, to invite this person to Islam in the best way. Find me a way in this conversation. So this is the next thing. Make dua to Allah, that Allah opens your heart to Islam, your breast to Islam, makes your words inviting to the people. So that's the next thing you need.
Sure.
Then how do you begin the conversation? This depends upon the person. You can, of course, just have a conversation about anything. It could be the weather, it could be about football, it could be about a movie, it could be about whatever, right? And then lead that conversation in the direction of giving dawah.
Sure.
Or you could be straight up and blunt. It depends upon you, your circumstance, the situation. This is really a time when this is where the people skills come in as well. Because it's important to know how to say the right thing in the right way, at the right place and the right time. So there is a skill in that. You may say the right thing, but you may say it in the wrong way. Or you may say the right thing in the right way, but you know what? The time was not right for that. Or you may say the right thing in the right place, and the time is right, but the place is not right. So there's many different factors that might come into play and will dictate exactly what you're going to say. So this is why I'm saying GORAP is a great method. Yeah, it's a great structure. But you know what? If you've got 3 minutes or 2 minutes, or you've just literally got a second to say something, maybe that's not going to be. You want to say something, and you could say something profound that would make the person think, but you've only got a few seconds. You're not going to go rap. You're going to have to think of something else to say, right? But when you've got that time, you've got that ability to start that conversation, you think this is the appropriate time, then, like I said, you can lead it in through various conversations.
Sure.
You could talk about the weather, and from the weather you could talk about systems, and then once you start talking about systems, if you know the GORAP approach, then it's easy to start linking that into the need for a creator. Could this all be some random event?
Yeah.
So there's many different ways. The weather's something the British always talk about. Maybe you need to make for yourself, 3 or 4 conversation scripts almost.
Sure.
Yeah, like the one I said. Yeah, have a that's a really good question.
Yes.
In order to answer it, there's a nice script. Mashallah, I saw my son just did it the other day. Exactly, just boom, like that. He was talking to someone. The guy said, "Why do you pray?" Well, what are you saying in your piece? That's a really good question, but in order to be able to, and he just straight,
Yeah.
So maybe you need to construct for yourself a few scripts that you can just slip into. I mean, if you've got the guts and you've got the sort of you've got that sort of personality, you can carry it through. You could just go. I mean, you straight up go up to a person randomly in the street, and you know what? I've got a really important message to give you. Or as I've tried it, I mean, you literally say, "What would you do if a man with nothing but red underpants came knocking at your door at 3 o'clock in the morning saying I've come to read the gas meter?" And just like straight like that. And I've done that, you know. And people just like, and it's like, what, you know? And you really get their attention.
Yeah.
It's like, you know. So a lot of it is to do with you, your personality, what's appropriate. And I think everyone needs to develop for themselves some things they feel comfortable with.
Sure.
And it's not just feeling comfortable. Push yourself, push your limits, push your abilities, you know. Dawah is a skill like anything else. You want to be good at something, you need purposeful practice, not just practice. Anyone can learn to ride a bike, and once you've ridden a bike, just go along a towpath. Yeah. But if you want to be heading down a hill at 40 miles an hour with rocks and bumps and roots and trees, and you need to build up your skill set.
Yeah.
Right? So you only get to that stage by purposeful practice, by keep on pushing your limits. Yeah. Not practicing, but practicing with a view to improving yourself constantly.
Sure. Okay, excellent. So can you just give the viewers a last summary of the GORAP method?
GORAP is a conversation that starts with talking about the existence of God, moving on to the oneness and the uniqueness of Allah, which is of course the whole issue of Tawheed, which is not, Islam of course is not just about Allah's existence, it's about the uniqueness and oneness of Allah. And then moving on to the need for revelation. Why do we need revelation? Why do we need God to send guidance to us? And how can we know the Quran is from Allah? And how can we know the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is who he claimed to be, the messenger of Allah? That's GORAP. And from that, it should really be GORAPs, because at the end of it, what you're looking for is Shahada. You're looking for them, and don't forget, you know, people should not forget to make that invitation. Make that invitation to actually invite them to Islam, because you can bring them right to this point and they say, that's fantastic, that's really interesting. That's it, they go with that. They have no idea that they can even become Muslim, maybe. One guy was asked, why didn't you become Muslim? He said, no one invited me, no one asked me, I didn't even know. If someone had asked me, I would have become Muslim 20 years ago, well, you know. So, I mean, this is the thing, you know. Don't be afraid to make the sale at the end, right? You know, which is to invite them to testify to the oneness of Allah and to the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Okay, everybody, as you know, we are going to be using the GORAP method, and in each series, in each video, we're going to be going through one aspect of the GORAP and going more in detail. So as always, Jazakallah khair for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.